I think that there's a lot of validation in getting a diagnosis if that's the person's reaction to it. We have to be able to understand what they were like as a child, in school, with family, in different contexts. The symptoms also have to be present in at least two contexts. So it can't only be at home. We have to see symptoms showing up before the age of 12, as well as at work, at school, the person's home environment.
Going back to your point earlier about coping mechanisms, a lot of us learn coping mechanisms when we were children. So to have someone be diagnosed before 12, there must be ways in which you can get at that before 12 picture that tells you whether or not someone has symptoms of ADHD. Can you give just a little light touch on that?
So I'll actually also speak to this from a personal note. I have ADHD. I was actually diagnosed, I'm about to be 32. I was actually diagnosed, I think when I was 27. So it's been a couple years now. I was in the second year of my PhD program, and I got diagnosed the way that a lot of people are getting diagnosed, where I had been speaking to a psychiatrist, filled out that form, and got suggested that I try Adderall. I did end up trying it because I'd been struggling significantly. And while it helped me in ways that I'm still making sense of, I find that the benefits that it's brought me has just really changed my life. However, someone who is also training to be a psychologist, as someone who's also seen folks with ADHD through my training, for myself, I had this really frustrating inner conflict of, is it ADHD? Is it anxiety? Is it depression? Is it a very real response to all of the chaos that's happening in the world and the marginalization that I was experiencing as a woman of color from working class, being at Columbia, and seeing a lot of lives that were not like mine and a lot of identities that were not like mine? There was this balance of wanting to both honor my experiences and also really understand, I graduated, I got a job, I started making money. I wasn't a student for the first time in 10 years. And I actually decided to get a comprehensive ADHD diagnostic assessment, which had been recommended to me by several other colleagues. What I had learned, as well as what I now do in my practice, is in order to assess for symptoms in childhood, I will be speaking to collateral. I'll be speaking to parents. I'll be speaking to siblings. I'll be speaking to folks who knew my client as a child. This is how I was trained to be able to assess for symptoms, as well as what I experienced. Found that it was a very helpful model for me to recognize that I can assess for symptoms, even if a person isn't necessarily entirely sure of whether or not symptoms were present.
That actually was a really cool answer. Seriously, when you started talking about taking the time to find that person who's actually interested in helping you uncover your diagnosis. And I love this approach of really checking into all aspects of someone's childhood and having those conversations.